Why literature matters. I'll start with something you already know, that humans have a vastly larger brain than other animals, in which is a proportionately larger cortex. That's the part that deals with abstract thought and language. This is vital for communication, literature and social cohesion, and for challenging it when things aren't right. And so we understand the world through language, and we shape the world through it. So in a way, it's a collective mind and a social fact. It's what makes us human. We've listened to stories for millennia, ever since we sat around campfires, stared into the flickering flames and the shadows of the cave walls. Our imaginations excited and stimulated. Stories helped us make sense of the world and of each other. And by us, I mean simultaneously those in the African and Asian continents, the Near and Middle East, the Arctic poles, and in darkest Europe, wherever there have been people. As the great English poet John Donne said, "No man is an island," and all those people would have been in societies with a social self in order to survive. And that's true today. Some of our profoundest stories are those from further back, the Greek poet Homer, Tales of the Arabian Nights, Beowulf, Shakespeare. And these days we have many new and sophisticated ways of telling them and of mediating them: novels, TV, cinema, theatre, poetry. And all being well, i.e. if we are not starving or illiterate, and I grant you this is a lot of people, literature will be a part of our lives. Why is it so important? As important as food, some say. Well, yes, we'd starve without food, but we'd starve in another way without literature. Mind and body are integral. Literature is vital in the true life-giving sense, because it induces empathy for others and introducing us to people and situations outside of our own societies. It takes us out of ourselves, as they say. But the stories need to be good enough if they are to fly and catch in the mind. If it engages us and induces empathy, it's good. And for this, they need emotional truth in order to relay shared experience. Writers need work to be shared and to be accountable, even from beyond the grave. Charles Dickens, for example, introduces us to the cruelties and hypocrisies of Victorian Britain. At the same time, his work started to pave the way for a welfare state, although it took the Second World War to see its foundation. But his work had emotional truth. We empathise with his characters. The knowledge contained within the great novels of, say, Dostoevsky, Tolstoy, Eliot, Okri, Austen, although it isn't enough. Can't written documented evidence do the same? Yes, but it's the emotional journey of a story. The journeys of well-written characters that relate to others in their fictional world that changes us. And this is what makes it art. Look at how children project into fairy stories and identify with the protagonist and work out what they would do in their situation. It is a vital part of child maturation, and I believe that this goes on all our lives, whether we are reading Jane Austen's great novels or watching a soap opera. If it's good, it engages us and we imagine ourselves in those situations and what we would do if we were. That's what changes and enriches us and empowers us to imagine and work for a better world. Now, the good stuff doesn't always rise to the top. Literature can become corporatized. It's a product of the writer's mind, but it's also a published product, unless it's self-published, which has its own problems, i.e. lack of marketing, editing. But to take on a book or a play, a poem, a film or a TV script, the publisher, who is usually operating on capitalist principles, needs a market. Yes, to make a living, but also a profit. Genre and sales are the driving force, and it can seem that these bookshops or theatres or screens are feeding us, that the literature industries set a sort of national curriculum. The people who run these industries have been to the top universities and are from backgrounds of privilege who want to keep the status quo, not change it. They tend to avoid class politics, less it is to domesticate the working class, as does, in my view, programmes like Coronation Street. But the establishment does love identity politics. And for all the good and fascinating writing there is about gender, sexuality, race, it challenges or celebrates difference rather than the thing that unites us, social class. And so in a class-divided society, published literature will usually reflect a class position, usually that of the dominant class. where the importance of the individual, self-pitted against adversity, reflects capitalist ideologies and the atomization that the current neoliberal world order seeks to establish. There is an unhelpful mystery around creative writing, or call it a mythery, that it is reserved for the uber-gifted or highly educated, or for those of neurotic temperament, not helped by talk of genius. No, by virtue of being human, we are literate and we can write. It's a natural extension of ourselves. Witness the many people of no fame or particular lustre that keep diaries. It is also thought of as a solitary activity. It can be, but it often comes from community or group activity. After all, if we are not part of society, humanity, how can we write? It can be fun, exhilarating, therapeutic, and if you get published, nice. If more people thought of it as human expression by right and not the route to fame and riches, there would be more of it. So check out local writing, all sorts of writing, courses, groups, or just knock it out at home or in your local cafe. After all, you're men and women of letters.